Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. Time is 2 p.m. We're in conference room 329. We're calling to order the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. For those who are on Zoom, please keep yourselves muted. Your video is off until it is your turn to testify. For those who are testifying in person, please come up to the podium to testify in the mic so those on Zoom can hear you as well. We'll be limiting testimony to 2 minutes. I'll be sure to remind you when your 2 minutes are up, and please wrap your testimony up at that point. Okay, first on the agenda, we have HB 2298 relating to consumer protections. First to testify, we have Hawaii Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Richard Cohen from the Measurement Standards Branch at the Department of Agriculture. We have comments that have been submitted. We'll stand on the comments. I'm here and available to answer any questions if you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Manfredi from the Hawaii Coffee Association on Zoom. Chris, go ahead. Okay, we'll come back to you if you are able to connect back. Next, we have Gerard Bastanzi from the Hawaii Coffee Company in opposition.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your consideration today. I'm Gerard Bastians, President of the Hawaii Coffee Company. Hawaii Coffee Company offers a wide variety of coffee products, including Kona blends from 10% to 100%. We believe it's important to offer consumers a range so they have options to choose from based on their preference and affordability. 2298 will limit these options, and instead of supporting local businesses and suppliers, will drive consumers to select another more affordable alternative roasted on the mainland or abroad. As this bill will reduce the volume of coffee purchased, roasted, and packaged in our facility in Kalihi, the number of employees we currently employ would not be sustainable, and a reduction of force would occur. This would also be the case with many of our suppliers and partners. For these reasons, we ask this measure be held. However, if the committee is inclined to pass the measure, we ask for your consideration on amendments. A vital amendment is to allow the commercially reasonable phasing to increase the blend requirements to a 2-year period instead of 1. It is a significant economic investment to modify packaging every year. Also, retailers need a minimum of 1 year to sell through existing inventory to avoid us and the retailers disposing of millions of dollars of product. Also, the economic study strongly encouraged any change to mitigate the shock and have a long period of implementation. Further, increasing the blend requirement up to 50% only, and then reassessing the economic value once we have more data and information. The recent coffee labeling study recognized that the limited availability of data and constrained timelines significantly impacted the precision of the study's conclusions. Finally, we ask to replace the word foreign with the word international. Thank you very much for your consideration. Thank you.
Next, we have Lauren Zerbel from the Hawaii Food Industry Association on Zoom. Moving on, we have Suzanne Schreiner from the Synergistic Hawaii Agriculture Council on Zoom.
I'm here. Thank you. I've just been unmuted. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Thank you for hearing my testimony. I am Suzanne Schreiner. I'm a second-generation coffee farmer representing SHAC, the Synergistic Hawaii Ag Council, and I also serve as Vice President of the Kona Coffee Farmers Association. We stand on our written testimony with the additional comment. I have been testifying in support of raising the blend ratio for almost 2 decades. Opponents to this bill have repeatedly asked for an economic study as a delay tactic. When the legislature gave us the study under Act 222 last session, the results fell unequivocally in favor of raising the ratio to 100%. Our growers have been asking to do away with 10% blends for 25 years, and the time is now. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you. Next, we have Tina Yamaki from Retail Merchants of Hawaii in opposition in person.
Live and in person this time. Aloha, I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we respectfully oppose this bill. We understand the intent of the measure, but locally grown coffee like that from Kona is one of the most expensive in the entire world. And with the timeline being so close, doing it annually, like the previous gentleman said, you know, our warehouses and our store shelves, we're going to either have to sell it at a loss with a deep discount, or we just got to trash it. And retailers were already struggling, so that's really hard to do. And talking to some retailers, some of them said they'll just stop selling it until it's 100%. And even then, they said it's probably going to be too expensive for a lot of our customers to do that. We're also wondering who's going to check to see if the coffee does indeed meet these percentages, because it can't be retail. We don't have the knowledge, equipment, or expertise, and taste testing is not, I'm sure, doesn't count. And so by annually mandating an increase in minimum percentage of locally grown coffee, the cost of this product would also significantly go up, and that's going to deter a lot of people from purchasing. And when people don't purchase, retailers don't stock the shelves with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have William Schmeidick from Dealer Store Hawaii in opposition.
Aloha, and thank you for allowing me to testify. I am a reseller of Hawaii-made products. I retired military guy. I chose to stay in Hawaii, make a living here, and I love selling made in Hawaii products. I have sold thousands and tens of thousands of coffee products, both 100% and blended. I was also an analyst in the military, so I am a careful reader of documents. I looked at Act 222 in the study. I've looked at a mountain of documents that were submitted for and against in this Kona Coffee lawsuit. My summation of this Act 222 was that it was rushed, it lacked broad input, and it's going to have an adverse effect if it goes into effect as is. My primary concern is lack of enforcement. There is no mechanism today. There was a cadaver lab that was hired that did some analysis that got brought into the Kona Coffee lawsuit that was not peer reviewed, and there was lots of expert testimony against that in the lawsuit. But in that lawsuit, no one was found guilty. It never went to court. Until there's some sort of mechanism to certify that coffee is a certain percent Kona, this bill should not pass. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be going back to Chris Manfredi on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Sorry, my Zoom crashed at the beginning of the hearing. It took me a little while to get logged back in. I appreciate you coming back to me. Testifying on behalf of the Hawaii Coffee Association, we're in strong support of this measure. We've been talking about this bill for a long time with our members, which are primarily small growers positioned throughout the supply chain. We have members. And if you look at the folks who have introduced this bill, I mean, this is really democracy in action. We have representatives from coffee growing regions who talk to their members, all year long. And, the undercutting on price, growers who are trying to survive and produce a quality product to support our brand identities are just being undercut by these blends. And the fact is the quality of a lot of these blends is really poor. So when a customer buys a product and associates it with Kona or Ka'u or Maui or Kauai, and it's not a good product, they're going to have a negative impression of that product, and that projects throughout the industry. We talked about this a lot last session and in sessions prior, and we came to a compromise on the study last session, and Department of Ag funded the study. The study was fairly comprehensive, and the conclusions are quite clear, and they align with our members. Moreover, I want to address some previous testifier that there's no way to enforce this, and that's just not true. We've worked really hard to build a database of trace elements throughout the state where green or roasted coffee can be tested to say where it came from and where it didn't come from.
Chris,
And
your
that's
2-minute
true
time
for
limit is
blends.
up. Can you please summarize your testimony?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway, we stand on our written testimony. We thank you for hearing this bill. We want you to listen to the folks that have been supporting it for years. The phase-in is reasonable, and we ask you respectively to support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey Clark in support on Zoom.
Hello, aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. My name is Jeff Clark. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Edmund Sealson Trust, who owns and operates the Ka'u Coffee Mill down in Pahala. As a coffee mill, we buy and support about 60 to 75 small farmers down in the Ka'u region. We buy their coffee, process, and sell it. And unfortunately, when we have to sell against blended coffees that have inferior taste profiles, as was previously mentioned, it has an adverse effect on the price that we could charge in the market. Hawaii coffee was built, and the reputations in Kona, Ka'u, and other areas of Hawaii, the reputation of its coffee has been built by the farmers. And so anything short of 100% of what they produce is leaving them with the short end of the stick in terms of being able to sell their crop on a year-to-year basis. And so I stand in full support for this bill, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Moguru in opposition.
Good afternoon. Thanks for my testimony here today. Although this bill would greatly benefit my company, Mobile Corporation, where I'm the president of this 100% Kona coffee. The reason I oppose the bill is because there's a huge theft problem in the stores. So if you go to Foodland or you go to Safeway or Times or Long's, you're going to find it non-existent on the shelf. It won't be on the shelf. It'll probably be locked up. I sold coffee for 30 years in this industry. 100% Kona was my niche. That's all I did. And just 3 years ago, I had no presence on the shelves. So I had to switch to a 10% Kona blend just so I could be viable to have a presence on the shelf to be able to continue to sell Kona coffee. So if this bill passes, it greatly benefits me. I would definitely be supportive of it. However, at this time, I have to oppose of it just because of the high theft that's happening in our state inside the stores of shoplifting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Are there any on Zoom? Okay, seeing none, members, there are a number of written testimonies received, so please bear with me as I go down the list. Testimony in support from Council District H, North Kona, Hawaii County. Opposition from Hawaii Teamsters and Allied Workers, Local 996. Comments from Maui Oma Coffee Roasting. Support from Pohaku Coffee LLC. Support from Sanctuary of Mana Ke'a Gardens. Support from Rancho Aloha Coffee Farm. Support from Kona Earth. Support from Lava Rock Farm. Opposition from Kona Coffee Council. Opposition from Ka'ivi Farms. 4 written testimonies in support from Kona Coffee Farmers Association. Greenwell Farms in support. Kanalani Ohana Farms in support. Hua Hua Farms LLC in support. Ka'u Coffee Grower Cooperative in support. Hawaii Farm Bureaus in support. Aina Design Corp in support. Pohaku Farms in support. Cyanotex Corporation in support. Bees Knees Farm in support. Hawaii Coffee Maka Pueo Farms in opposition. Aloha Hills Kona Coffee LLC in opposition. Menehune Coffee Company in opposition. Hawaii Coffee Company has 2 written testimonies in opposition. Kona Kohala Chamber of Commerce in support. Pacific Coffee Research in support. Paradise Found Hawaii Estate Coffee Farm in support. Finally, we have 30 individuals in support, 9 individuals in opposition, 1 individual submitting comments. Members, are there any questions?
No, you go first.
Representative Nishi, please.
Okay, Department of Ag, please. So, thank you for being here. So the department set up the study, right? I mean, where they were required to do the study.
We sent out an
Marketing.
RFP for the study and hired an economic study contractor.
Okay, so you're very familiar with the study and the results,
Yes, relatively familiar, yes.
relatively?
It's 100 pages.
Okay. What were the limitations of this study?
Limitations and lack of data obtained in the study leaves unprecise outcome predictions.
Unprecise.
Unprecise.
So this whole study, in essence, because of lack of data, is not a precise study.
Correct.
So we're basing these decisions on whether or not to make this change on a study that is inconclusive because there's not enough data to make it a precise study.
Are you asking if all of the information is being based on the study only?
This bill, right, is a offshoot or a follow-up to the study, as people testified. There was a similar bill last year. We changed it to a study so that we could get the data and the information on whether or not to make this decision. That was the purpose of the study, right? The marketing study, to see the effect of making these changes would have on Kona Coffee. Derek, you want to come up? You want to? It looks like you're ready to answer the question.
I can help step in. Dexter Kishida, Deputy at Department of Ag. I think there's 2 parts, and granted, I am the new guy to the room, but there's a couple pieces to the study that I think are important. One, the general outcomes. And while it may have been imprecise to get to the exact dollar or price point that we need to sell at or the exact percentage, the general sentiment of the study showed definitely that increasing the amount is necessary, right? That having that brand, that we have a strong brand, and it could be sold at that 100%. So that was my takeaway from the study.
Well, I mean, right now, we know people can sell 100% Kona coffee
Absolutely.
or 100% any coffee made in Hawaii.
Right.
We don't need a study to tell us that. What you're just saying is that this study tells us that if we sell 100%, we can sell it. We know that
Reinforce
already.
that, correct.
That wasn't the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study, right, was to look at the marketing information and does it make sense for us to get rid of 10% blend and go to 100%? And if I read the study correctly, it's inconclusive because there's not enough data for it to make that determination. So we may be passing this law requiring eventually 100% any coffee in Hawaii, and it might hurt the industry. And then we got to go back and change it back again? To what? 10%, 20%, 25%, 51%? You understand what my question is?
I hear what
Is
you're
this
saying.
study legitimate enough for us to base this decision on changing, getting rid of 10% and going eventually to 100% within, how many years?
4 years?
By 2027,
Over 4 years.
which is
Four changes.
3 years from now,
Right.
right? We might not even have enough data on sales to understand what the change is from 10% to 51% to 100%, and what effect it has on the market, right? Because this 100% may actually adversely affect growers down the road versus help them.
This did come up in some discussions that we've had in the results of this. But also, this conversation, I feel, has been going on for quite a while at this building and just kind of around, that at what point do we make this move to a more concentrated piece, right? So that's why the
I
study.
agree with you 100%.
That is why the.
That's why the previous legislature or the previous session, we passed the
Commission.
bill to give us the information so we can make this decision and not continue this discussion from year to year to year. What this study says is we need to put into place more data collection,
Right,
right?
Correct.
absolutely.
The other question I have about this study is what was the concentration of this study based upon?
Concentration of, I'm sorry, I'm not
The
understanding.
study.
Like what location? What
Exactly.
demographic? Got it. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer, and I can go back to the team if.
Well, it was predominantly Kona region with Callao
Predominantly or exclusively?
I think that the most information that they got, because one of the things that they gleaned was that Kona had a value found of 46% of overall coffee production in the industry for the state of Hawaii.
Okay.
So it was-
Okay, but this law affects only Kona coffee?
No, it would affect all geographic coffee.
All geographic areas in Hawaii, right? So Kauai coffee, Maui coffee, Oahu coffee, right? I didn't see any data on them. I didn't see anybody testifying for them. Were they included in the study? Were they asked? Did they give information? It doesn't say it here in the study. Our largest coffee farm, single grower, is where?
Hawaii from my.
Hawaii, right?
But did they do 10% blending? I don't think they
I
do
don't think so.
10%.
I don't think so. So that could be also why, because they have pure Kauai coffee. That's, I can look into also why the scope was as such. Yeah, I think that would be.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Lowen.
Thanks. You can stay up there. Number of questions. I mean, the report, well, you guys approved the report. And I think calling it imprecise, I mean, do you mean to say you approve a report you think you shouldn't have approved, or you just mean the nature of the subject matter is that you're not going to get a single definitive answer, the nature of this type of analysis?
The latter. Or it will take significant input to reinstate our ag survey type, not division, section, sorry, to be able to glean this kind of data that's needed. It just doesn't exist. So the best of what we had.
What data is that?
I think down to doing the markets, a true market report on
And what are you
coffee.
basing that on?
What am I basing the data points on?
I mean, I guess when I look at it, because this report, also, one of the findings in the report was just upholding the findings of the Feldman report, which was published, I think, in 2010 or 12, I can't remember, peer-reviewed, published economic impact study that had been rejected for years by, the blender side of this argument because they said it wasn't independent. But like for anyone who's sort of taken Economics 101, It's a really simple question. And for anyone who's there growing coffee, the answer is evident. It's not complicated, and that's, I think, why the report didn't dwell on it in too much and basically said, yeah, they unequivocally found, one, supporting the Feldman report, and two, the finding that increasing the percent of Kona coffee will increase the dollar value that farmers get for it because blending it devalues it. So.
Thank you. Explained actually my statement earlier on kind of is just much better than I just did. Thank you.
So you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess the reason the report would have focused primarily on Kona was due to that, I think that being what was in the bill that was passed in 2022, by the way, not last session, it was 2 sessions ago. And the existing law, we're right in looking at this, but the existing law is really specific to Kona coffee labeling, I believe. So if there's an issue with that, I guess we could narrow it to just Kona coffee and let the other, see how it goes, But I guess, in addition, Kauai coffee was brought up. Are you familiar? Does Kauai coffee blend any coffee?
Not that I know of, but I can verify that.
Okay, I think they do only 100%.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. What else do I want to ask? Yeah, I guess that's the sum of it. I think Department of Agriculture's testimony is in support.
Yes.
And I would presume you support the study that you
Absolutely.
approved. So
Absolutely.
it would be
Hence our support.
good to clarify that because it didn't sound that way from the start.
The only comment we do have is similar to what a few have stated. The benchmarking almost is hurtful in doing especially this narrow benchmarking to get to the end goal.
Right.
So we may want to adjust that.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's a very short time period to go 12 months
Yeah,
and to change the percentages drastically. And if
because you have
the
product you want to
end result's
sell.
going to be 100%, there's very limited data on the 50%. I think that Hawaii Coffee Company probably has the most information about that because they were making blends of 50%.
Well, I think that the study shows, like I said, pretty unequivocally that the coffee sells, and that making it 100% only if you're going to put the word Kona on the label will not impact sales, despite testimony that we heard. The study indicates that that's not the case, as well as the experience of our farmers in Kona, right? So, for those of us familiar with it, it's not surprising.
Right.
So, but I understand that you wouldn't want to have this exact date where you had to take all the product off the shelf, so that's something that maybe we should look at. But I guess, and this might not be a side of the industry you're familiar with, like, if you have a packaged coffee on a supermarket shelf, presumably it's not sitting there for a year. That would be not a very great product, and I assume they sell through it more quickly than that typically. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. We can
I'll
look
ask
into
someone
that
else.
too. But yeah, just in the production flow, I think instead of every year having a benchmark, either creating a longer runway or reducing the benchmarks.
Yeah, okay,
So it's a bigger jump.
okay, thank you. I
Rep-
have other questions, but do you want to come back?
Representative Bellotti, did you?
Yeah, I have a question about the
Okay,
study.
go ahead.
So I'm looking at the study now, and I guess what disturbs me is that at the end of the day, and I'm not familiar with the Feldman study, so I'll certainly look at it, we're basing our decision on essentially 198 panelists in Hawaii and 448 panelists from continental US. This is going to affect families and businesses. And so when you say that the narrow benchmarking could bring harm, what is the benchmarking that you would suggest we do? Do we do a 5-year timeline, a 10-year timeline?
I think somewhere in the study, it said something about a 3-year timeline, about doing more comprehensive retail analysis and economic information based on what the different percentages would be. And there was something about 6 months worth of retail information that could be gained from the Retailers Association of Supermarkets. I forget the name of the company that had it available, but if the consultants were able to do 6 months more analysis with the retail information that was able to be obtained, they'd have more strict evidence of what the differences were in the sales percentages that were sold and what the projections would be. Because a lot of it was based on, theoretical projections and not economic analysis.
Okay, so is there anywhere in this study where it proposes going to 50% and then doing further studies to get to the 100%?
I think the suggestion in the study was to go to 50% and do an analysis at 50% because there was not a lot of information about the 50% percentage, and then do an additional analysis on whether it should go to 100%. But with the lack of analysis data on the 50%, I think the suggestion was to go to 100% at the end of the spectrum, because that was the goal of what the farmers were looking for, or the associations, and to get the highest quality product advertised at 100%.
Wait, so you're saying that the study was driven by what you guys wanted as the outcome versus us needing the data to make a better decision? That's what you just said. You said it was being driven by the growers, largely.
No, I'm saying that the growers were going to benefit by the analysis, but they said that as much as the growers benefit by the analysis, there could be other sectors of the coffee economy, like the blenders, roasters, and distributors, that would suffer in a similar manner. So it would change the value given and the elements that, I guess the rent that went back and forth between the industry on where the economics was gonna come through in the end.
Just one last follow-up question, though.
Go ahead.
But what I did hear, I think we're going to disagree on what you just said, but I think one of the things I heard is that there needs to be more economic analysis, and this was not as robust a study as it could have been at the 50% mark.
I think that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Lowen.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, we don't sell 50% blends because the minimum required by law is 10%, so we get 10%. So obviously, there's not data for that. Just to follow up on some of the statements you made, I read the report and I didn't see any legislative specific recommendations. There was nowhere in the report that it said, go to this amount, then this amount. The report looked at both 50% or 51% and 100% because that was what we asked for in the bill that the legislature passed. And the results of the report, as I read them, said any increase is better for increasing the value of the product, the actual product produced, grown here. Any increase is better. 51% is good, 100% is more. That's how I read it. So, I mean, is that not how you read it? I didn't see anywhere in the report that there was a specific recommendation for what action the legislature should take.
I don't think that they made a specific recommendation. I think that they did say that a higher percentage would create a better value for the overall product. But in that, there would be winners and losers amongst the industry.
Yeah. Of course. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. Now, my understanding from last year was that the funding for the study was actually appropriated by the 2022 legislature. And it was not until after the hearing that we had here on the same issue a year ago that the department decided to kind of rush to actually implement the study. So I'm wondering, and my understanding at the time was that there were some in the department that felt that they weren't going to do the study. So my question to you is, how did the study finally come about? Why did it wait so long to get implemented? And, I think that's part of the reason why we're not that satisfied with the results of the study.
I apologize. I can't answer for prior administration, but I do know Chair Hurd definitely isn't kicking any cans down the road. So I think when brought to her attention, we definitely moved forward with it.
I think there was a long delay in funding. Leo
Got
would-
it. Maybe,
Leo was
yeah,
the one to talk to on that.
I can talk to our division administrator what some of the delays were. I do know traditionally, though, it is also just a release of funding sometimes, and then to finally start the RFP process. But I can find out more, Representative, and get back.
Okay, so if you can get back
Yeah,
to me
definitely.
in writing, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
And I will share that
Absolutely.
with the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Lowen? Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Yes. I guess for Gerard Estate, is that how you say your last name? Sorry. Okay, I'm trying to find my notes. So, in your testimony, you're saying changing this labeling requirement will reduce the amount of coffee processed. But just to be clear, at least if we're talking about, just doing Kona coffee, I mean, you can do other coffee blends. You can blend anything with coffee grown in Hawaii and call it Hawaii coffee. And there's nothing in the law that prevents that. It's just the specific geographic origin names that can't be used.
I'm sorry, Representative Malone, I didn't understand the question.
Okay, you're saying passage of this law would decrease the amount of coffee that's processed and blended at your facility.
That's correct, yes.
So just, I guess, to understand, how much of what you do now is just a Kona coffee blend? I mean, you're not blending, no one's blending Kauai coffee, we know that. I don't know if you're doing any specific origin names for certain kinds of Maui coffee. I don't know if there's Ka'u coffee blends, maybe a few, or Puna or any other types, or is it pretty much just Kona coffee?
Oh, I understand. One, just a point of clarification, Kauai Coffee does do blends. I just looked it up online while we were talking, and they have a 10% blend product. So they do blend as well as Hawaii Coffee Company. And we blend all origins in Hawaii, not just Kona. So we do Hawaiian blends, we've done Ka'u blends, we've done Maui blends, we'll do blends. It's just based on customer.
You've done, but do you do currently?
Generally, yes. I mean, obviously, Maui, we had the tragedy and the coffee mill burned down, so unfortunately, we don't have access to Maui coffee. And
And are you currently doing any Ka'u?
Yes, I believe so, yeah. The Sam Choi, I believe, is a Ka'u blend. So we do and we have, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But what % of what you do is Kona coffee?
What % of the blended product is Kona?
It's called Kona. Obviously, it's not actually reflecting Kona.
We do all the origins. Generally, we wouldn't disclose our exact blend percentages and mixes and things like that. Kona would be the largest, just from a supply standpoint, but it's not immaterial, the other origins that we would blend.
Maybe you can't say a number.
Generally, we wouldn't disclose company information, where our volumes exactly were, our blends and all of that. Just proprietary information, I apologize.
Okay. I'm not quite sure why that would be proprietary. It seems pretty basic. But so I guess then, just to clarify the point then, that even if Kona coffee can only be sold as 100% Kona without blends, that you could still do other coffee blends. You still have other types of coffee that you're blending.
My understanding is the legislation applies to all origins.
Right, but if it was just Kona, well, it doesn't apply to anything called Hawaii, or presumably, I'm not sure if it would apply to Maui, or just a more specific geographic origin.
I'm not as close to the legislation, maybe as the committee, but my understanding is all these regulations apply to all Hawaiian coffee. So this would eliminate all all blends, everything
I
up
don't
to
think that's
100%.
accurate.
And we would not be able to sell 10% blends from other Hawaiian locations, I believe.
But you, okay, I don't think that's the correct reading of it. I guess just getting back to the purpose of this bill so that we all don't forget. I mean, you sell coffee with the name Kona on it for a much higher price than you would sell coffee without the name, with just plain Hawaii coffee or coffee, I guess not Hawaii at all. I mean, that's the purpose of putting the name Kona on the front of it.
If I understand your question correctly, I mean, we sell everything from 100% to 10% and a lot of blends in between. I don't believe any of our pricing is different for a 10% Kona blend with other Hawaiian blends, like a 10% Kau blend or a 10% Kauai blend. I don't believe those.
It's higher than just a Hawaii coffee blend.
I don't believe we price any of those differently in the market today. Like a Kau blend's not going to be less expensive on shelf.
I didn't say Kau.
Oh, I apologize. So generally, any of our blends would have, depending on the product, we'd have to go into a lot of specifics.
A Hawaii coffee, though, just Hawaii versus Kona. Or just any other coffee that, not an origin name, but any other coffee that you blend or that you sell, that process.
There would depend on different components of the coffee, what we're blending it with, other items. But say under the Royal Kona brand, we have 10% Hawaiians, but we have the Royal Hawaiian brand also. Well, we'll say we'll do 10% Kau in the Royal Hawaiian, or we'll do 10% something else. And those on shelf for the same price as Royal Kona.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure, and I mean, if you're not going to give an answer, you're not going to give an answer. But if I go to the grocery store right now and look at just Hawaiian coffee versus something that has Kona on the front of it, that the one that says Kona is going to cost more.
For our products, for our company specifically, the Royal Kona brand, anything within the Royal brands, so the Royal Hawaiian, the Royal Kona, all of those are going to be priced the same. We have other brands that have different components, measures, and brand positioning that might be on a different price portfolio structure. And that also has to do with what we're blending it with and other things that would dictate different price points.
Okay, so we're not getting straight answers. That's fine. Thanks.
I apologize.
That's fine.
Representative Onishi.
Yes. I have a question, follow-up. Do you know how much you're selling 100% of any Hawaii name coffee?
Well, our number one selling product as a company is Royal Kona 100% ground coffee. Our number two selling product as a company is Royal Kona whole bean 100% coffee. So our number one and two items we sell are 100%, and many of our top selling items are 100% Royal Kona. And we put more coffee into 100% than we do into 10% as a company. So we sell a lot of 100%. It's a unique market segment with a unique customer and distributor, and we're very happy to continue to sell as much 100% as we can. It's just so expensive, we can only sell so much of it. I hope that answered your question, sir.
So do you know how much you sell it for, retail, or the retail price of it is?
Generally, our bag of Royal Kona is going to be somewhere, $26 to $30 on shelf.
That's 8 ounces.
Yes, sir.
So a 1 pound bag would be, if you sold a 1 pound bag, would be about $50 to $60
Yeah, generally around $60. Yeah.
a bag. Are you familiar with the study that was done?
Yes, sir, I am.
So on page 35, the question was, what is the highest price per pound you'd be willing to pay for 100% Kona or Kau coffee, assuming that the primary method of preparation is by the pot? And according to the 98 respondents, 198 respondents to this survey, 76% said they would not pay more than $54 a pound. So of that market, I mean, how much of that market would be eliminated by going to 100% of your regular, your entire business, right? If 76% wouldn't pay the price.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, based on my industry experience and the consumer research and market analysis we do, that all of the 10% blend consumers essentially would transfer over and buy product that was roasted on the mainland or internationally. It would not, they would not transfer and have the additional money or the desire to spend, $60 a week on coffee at home.
So would, by making it only 100%, and you being able to buy beans from farmers for only the 100%, would the farmers be paid more?
I've struggled with this. I don't understand how, if we and other mills are buying less coffee, the price will go up or even remain the same. Farmers are often very unaware as to where their coffee goes. It just goes to a mill as a sale, and we'll mill it for 100%, 10%, or we'll go to many other mills on, say, Big Island and buy their coffee and then use it as needed for 100% and 10%. But all the 10% coffee, blended coffee, would essentially go away. So therefore, all the product farmers sold would have to be sold into 100% products.
And so would that price for the bean, the raw bean, actually go up?
Yeah, I don't understand that, because the 10% consumer is not the 100% consumer. So I don't understand how you take all the coffee we're buying and blending to go into the 10% and stop buying that, and at the same time how we could take the price for 100% up. Because we're a business, and if we could take our 100% coffee price up tomorrow and successfully do it, we would. If the Retail Association could charge twice as much at Foodland or Long's for 100%, they would. It's just based on what consumers are willing to pay. And right now, we charge as much as we're able to on our 100%.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Follow up.
Representative Lowen.
A couple things. First of all, I just looked on the Kauai Coffee website. I don't see any Kauai coffee blends. They sell some Hawaiian coffee blends, but maybe I'm missing it. But moving on from there, you're saying that your biggest seller is the 100% Kona coffee products, but but is that just of the Hawaiian beans? I mean, how many pounds of coffee do you sell annually? Like total Kona or anything imported?
I think that was a two-part question. So the first part is...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just questioning because as I understood, your biggest seller is 10%. And I don't know how you're calculating the 100% if you're saying it like 100% of the Kona coffee we sell is 100%. Like it just seems like a little tricky, but as I understand, I think you sell a lot of 10% blends.
I apologize if I wasn't clear. So if you took every bag of coffee we sold as a company and you just stacked it around the table and you ranked it from the one that sells the most in dollars to the one that sells the least, the number 1 and 2 at the end of the table would be the Royal Kona 100%.
The ones that cost the most?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
that's not what we were asking though, by volume. By volume.
Oh, so, and of the Kona, or of the Hawaiian coffee and the Kona coffee used by our company, more coffee is used in 100% than is used in 10%.
Well, yes, because it's only 10%. I mean, that's the whole point. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't think that was accurate and it was misleading to the committee. Can I ask just quickly? Oh, do you want to ask Gerard before I?
No, I actually have a question for an AG if they're here, an Attorney General if they're here. I guess my general question would be, I mean, there seems to be a presumption that this is only applying to Kona coffee, but as I read the bill as it currently states, it's all Hawaii coffee, and I just want to get an answer to that question.
Good afternoon, Deputy Attorney General Travis Moon.
Sorry, you're on the hook, but you're the only one here. So as I read House Bill 2298, there's a presumption here that this is only applying to Kona coffee, but as I read the plain language of this bill, it is applying to all Hawaii coffee. Is that correct?
You know, I'm not familiar with this bill, so I'm going to have to take some time to read it, and I can get back to you.
Can I show him the bill? Here you go.
Not in front of me.
Here it is. So if we wanted to fix this and make it only apply to Kona coffee, can we specify that?
And if you need more time, maybe we could circle back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Sure. Representative Lowen, I believe you had
Okay,
two
I'll
more
try
questions.
to, I'll try to wrap it up. I was gonna ask, retail merchants, but maybe just, I'll quickly, maybe if Suzanne or Chris still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Just to clarify, sorry, I think there is some confusion about the bill because I know some of our specific labeling requirements in law apply to using the word Kona. And
So the Department of Ag has regulations that cover 6 or 7 regions with the labeling requirement. So I believe this would extend to all of Hawaii,
okay,
which is what the HCA has voted to support, which
Yes.
includes growers from every region.
do you know how much, I mean, I know that the Kona coffee blends are the primary product. How much of coffee blends come from other regions, and have you talked with growers from those regions about their feeling on this?
Yes, Chris is here from the HCA. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I do sit on the HCA board. The HCA board voted unanimously to support House Bill 2298, and that includes representatives from Maui, Kauai, and Ka'u, as well as Kona.
Okay. Do you have a sense, and sorry, I don't know that there's anyone here that can answer this, but just, or we weren't getting straight answers from the last person, but like of the coffee that's sold in the state generally, the blended coffee that's, imported coffee blended with some coffee of some geographic origin in Hawaii, how much of that is a Kona blend versus other regions, and how much?
Yeah, Kona blend is the biggest label you see on the shelf because, of course, it's the most renowned blend. So you won't see as many, but they do blend Ka'u and some others. But Kona's the prestige brand in the state, so that's why they use that name.
Yeah. And on that note, I guess, just to touch on, I think there's always this confusion about concerns about the cost of it. And to clarify, like you said, it's the boutique product. It's the special, the most, kind of highly valued product because it is special. So can you just speak to that for everyone in the room? Like if you had the purpose of a brand name, anything, whether it's Gucci or, whatever, Tesla or whatever people are into, the purpose of it is not necessarily, it's not to be affordable. And the value to the farmers comes from it being special. And the value to
exactly.
that brings back to
yeah, and you
Hawaii's
see
economy.
that. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
But yes, it is. The brand name is very important in the global marketplace. There are coffees out there that demand more than $100 per pound, and they sell out every year. The Act 222 economic study was very clear that demand for Kona is inelastic, which means it doesn't matter the price, it will sell. Inelastic demand makes it, the product is worth as much as the consumer is willing to pay. What we see here in Kona is a lot of our local stores will sell them for more than $80 a pound, and most of our growers sell out. And there's close to 1,500 growers in the state, and most of those growers are based out of Kona. Probably over 300 of these farms sell direct to market. They don't sell to blenders. They go straight to the market, and they understand the market better than probably anyone on Oahu could, because we are the market. We create the market as growers. So this prestige brand, it's like a Dom Perignon, it's like a Gucci, it's like a Louis Vuitton. We don't want to see it counterfeited. In fact, we recently settled a counterfeiting lawsuit for over $40 million that someone referenced earlier in testimony. It's very important that we protect this brand. And anything less than 100% isn't truly Kona and jeopardizes our brand over the long run.
And similar laws exist in other jurisdictions that you know of that protect kind of those prestige brands like that?
Absolutely. Jamaican Blue Mountain is protected by the government of Jamaica. It cannot be exported unless it's truly a Jamaican Blue Mountain. And they do go to the mainland and enforce, practice enforcement on people who sell Jamaican Blue Mountain blends. They will not accept that. Same with Colombia. For coffee to leave the country of Colombia, it must meet a minimum grade standard because they want to protect their name. And I think the study references that. Origin protection is very important, whether it's Kona coffee, whether it's Parmesan cheese, whether it's champagne. It's important to protect these trade names because they mean something in the larger global market. We're not just talking about Hawaii here. We're protecting our market globally.
All right, okay, I know we spent a lot of time on this, so I won't go on, but thank you.
Representative Onishi, did you still have your question? Did you? Oh, no. Okay. Members, Representative Hussey Burdick.
I have a quick question for Gerard. Thank you so much. I apologize if I misheard. I was watching online before I got in. Did you say you would have to lay off employees at your Kalihi company?
Yes, ma'am, that's true, and the Teamsters have validated that, and that's one of the reasons they are opposing this bill, is it's going to cost jobs locally in Kalihi.
Why? What makes it so you have to fire people?
As I think was mentioned earlier in the questions, a lot of the people buying 10% bags of coffee, when these bags go away, they're just going to switch to buying coffee roasted on the mainland or coffee roasted internationally, which is not only going to damage our food security here in Hawaii and able to produce more of the products we consume here, but it's going to switch to, say, Starbucks, Coffee Bean. They're going to buy those products instead. And as the amount of volume that we move through our facility goes down, we need less employees.
Well, you don't have to stop selling the 10%, right? You just have to put a label on it. Am I misunderstanding that?
It would make it illegal for us to sell 10% blend coffee in this legislation. So it would be illegal for us and retailers, and there'd be significant fines if even one bag was inadvertently sold.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd also like to clarify, if I could, that the Hawaii Coffee Association did not unanimously support the bill. Honolulu Coffee Company supported testimony in opposition, and our company supported testimony in opposition.
I understand there's a follow-up question from Representative Lowen.
Really quickly, just in terms of the work at your, I mean, it's kind of like the example proves the point, because I mean, either you can continue to blend coffee at your facility and keep people employed and have Hawaii coffee and sell Hawaii coffee blends. You can continue to import coffee beans in the state, blend them with some Hawaii coffee, just not specific origin coffee, so it might be a little bit below grade, but the whole point, I mean, the only thing you taste in these blends anyway is the 90% imported beans. So the whole point of it is to slap the name on it. So you can still sell Hawaii coffee, and you might not be able to sell just Hawaii coffee for quite as much as you sell Kona coffee for, but according to what you were telling me earlier, you sell them all the same. So where this impacts your jobs is not quite clear to me, except unless you're conceding that adding the name Kona to a product in which you cannot taste that it's Kona whatsoever and that undercuts farmers puts a lot of more money in your pocket, and that's why you do it. I mean, it's one or the other.
I apologize if I missed any elements of the question, but with the increase in blend percentage, the price would go up, so the product would be unaffordable to people that buy
But
it.
that is not supported by the people who make the market, by the economic impact study, and by anyone who spent any time around this stuff. That's something that you're saying, but it's not supported by the study that you and your industry have asked for. Year after year, you've opposed this, any changes in this law because you said there has to be a study. And now there's a study and you don't like the results, so you're saying that doesn't count. But the results of the study say that the demand is inelastic and that it will not reduce sales.
I would respectively disagree with your characterization of our intention and our assessment of this situation.
Okay, that's all you got to say. Okay. great.
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I have a follow-up for Department of Ag. So one of the testifiers mentioned that the study says that the price of Kona coffee is inelastic. Does that say that in the study?
I think there's a table or a chart showing a graphic and it's supply and demand issues. And it does say that based on the information that they collected, they believe that it's inelastic, that people will still buy Kona coffee at a higher price.
Okay, on page 2 of the study, on the study, it has the heading willingness to pay. And it says that the willingness varies between pure Kona coffee and blends signaling a need for clear and truthful labeling to reflect the product's authenticity. As expected, based on the willingness to pay analysis, consumers' upper limits are positively linked to the percentage of Kona coffee in that consumer recognize its distinct quality, reflecting strong positioning in the market. The way I interpret that is the consumer understands that the higher amount of Kona coffee in the coffee demands a higher price. But in other tables, it says as you get higher in that amount of coffee, the willingness to pay the price or the number of people willing to pay gets less. I don't know how that's elastic, right? Because as the quality goes up and you got to pay more because that's all that's available, everybody would still buy it. That is elastic, correct? But the study doesn't show that. What I quoted you before, right? 76% of the people said, if I could only choose 100% Kona coffee to make a pot of, 76% said they wouldn't pay more than $54. And the price already is at $54 or more. And in fact, if you're vertically integrated, as was testified, you probably can sell 100% for even higher because of your own name recognition for your product, not the Kona necessarily.
Wait, if I'm understanding you correctly, Representative, you're saying that according to the report, the name recognition, so the brand is what sells. Am I understanding that correctly?
It says that as you increase the amount of that brand in the amount of coffee, people expect to pay more.
Of course.
Correct?
Yes.
That's what the study says. But it also says that if I had to choose, I could only buy 100% of a brand, I would not, 76% of us would say we would not buy any coffee because we wouldn't pay more than 54.
I need to see, I'm sorry, I'm bringing it up now to find
I
that
think it's on
chart.
page 35 or something,
Okay, thank you.
that chart.
Sorry. So in the question of what is the highest price per pound you would be willing to pay for 100% Kona or Ka'u, assuming that the primary method of preparation is by the pot.
And they were given a range of values.
Right.
Right? And 76% said they wouldn't pay more than $54. But right now, the price, that's why I asked, right? What is the price now? It's somewhere between $50 and $60. And that's off the shelf.
Right.
It's not the specialty guys that are doing it online, right? With name recognition, not necessarily Kona, right? But their own company names are out there.
And we see this in all economics, though, right? That there is going to be an upward cap of what people were willing to pay. But at the same time, I don't see that as disproving price elasticity.
Well, I mean, that's the only data we have. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, knowing that you would lose 76% of the customers if you went to 100%. They wouldn't buy any coffee or with that name, right?
I think also, though, the responses were specific to a specific question. And so the report taken in entirety still points to the fact that the people are willing to pay a higher price
For a greater amount of that coffee in the, per pound.
Hence the bill. And maybe we need to change the bill to be more specific at this point to Kona, because that's the scope of the study, to then say that, to follow, again, the report in its entirety, instead of in the one point, saying that people are willing to, leads to the bill today to get to that 100%. Does my logic?
I was kind of hoping that's what the marketing study, I was here in this committee when we changed it to a marketing study.
Got it.
Instead of changing the law. That's what I was hoping we'd get to, is to
A
see
definitive.
where would people be willing to pay for 100% Kona coffee?
A challenge with that kind of study too is that's also a point in time, right? That today we might be willing to, but with the downturn of economy, not so much. And so it's a point in
Exactly,
time.
right?
But
Sure.
But if, again, in entirety, sentiment skews this way to 100% being the sentiment, then why aren't we heading there? Is, I guess, my...
We have the product. We don't need to head there. We have the product. It's available. People can buy it if they choose to buy it.
But
people who want to buy less of that brand or that Kona, Ka'u, Kauai, Maui, they have that option to buy less of it. They might like that taste better than the 100%.
But then aren't we watering down, because we said earlier that branding is important, that aren't we watering that brand down by saying it's 10% versus keeping it strong at 100? And like I think was mentioned.
Well, I don't
and
think
call
so
it a Hawaiian-grown
because,
coffee.
I don't think so because they could buy Folgers or Maxwell House or something else that's a lot cheaper. It's like 3 pounds is like $15.
Okay.
You know? Then you have no Kona coffee. You know what I'm saying?
I do, but we're not prohibiting the sale of Hawaiian coffee in this bill, right?
Yes, you are.
How so?
Because it doesn't allow, well, I mean, yes, you can, you can, if somebody was to pay 100% premium price for Kona or Hawaii beans, and why would they mix it with cheaper beans? I mean, that doesn't make any logical
But aren't they
sense.
doing that now with the 10% blends? No?
You're taking, but it's 10% of the coffee, and you're paying a premium for that, right? Because of the name versus the lower cost coffee of other countries or other areas and mixing it.
Is the legislature saying then that if I just blend it here in Kona and I put on then a Kona label, that's worthwhile?
I would think so. You could say blended in Kona. I think you would still sell at a higher price than Maxwell House.
But, correct, so
Yeah,
that's
or
again,
blended in Hawaii, it probably would
But
still
then-
sell better.
the value, if I slap on a sticker on a plastic water bottle that has a
It
brand
says
name.
deep sea, you
Right.
can sell it in Japan for $5 a liter.
But is that what we should be doing, or should we protect
I
the
don't know
purity
what
of
we
it?
should be doing. It's a free market.
So we're saying that we should protect the purity of the brand.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, quick, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
Quick
Representative
follow-up.
Lowen.
On that note, I think the whole crux of the issue here is that when we allow that, it reduces the amount of revenue that goes back to our farmers. Is that how you also see
That is my
the
perception, is
results of this,
that
and the results of the study?
correct?
And
'Cause-
then,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, I don't want
The,
to.
the results of the study show that as we sell that pure product, we're not going to reduce the market of the amount of beans being sold.
In addition, the existence of blends that use that prestige brand name on it reduces the value of the product that our farmers are growing, and that's why we've had this debate for 30 years. If that wasn't the problem, the farmers would go away, but they're struggling to survive. And allowing the blends decreases our farmers' ability to survive and keep growing. Quick follow-up, also on the prior question. On the question of the kind of, I think, tell me if this is right. I think that the previous question, part of the issue that Rep. Onishi was talking about, is the report had sort of two parts. It had a qualitative analysis and a quantitative analysis. The quantitative analysis clearly shows this inelastic demand curve, kind of builds on the Feldman study, and it's pretty clear. You can't know for sure, because that's the nature of economics, you do modeling. But that's looking at sales and, market data that exists, right? You can't create market data that doesn't exist. The quantitative or the qualitative aspect of the report, which I think was what Rep. Onishi was referencing, is the part that did this public opinion survey that was like a little loosey-goosey. Would you agree with that statement?
That's well said. I will concede that.
Okay, that's just wanted to clarify.
Okay,
Thanks.
members, we've had some spirited debate on this measure. Again, this is the first bill of the agenda. So without further ado, we will be moving on to the next item, HP 1758, relating to professional engineers. First, we have Sheena Choi from the Board of Professional Engineers, Architects, Surveyors, and Landscape Architects in opposition. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Tony Lau, and I am a civil engineering member on the Board of Professional Engineers, Architects, Surveyors, and Landscape Architects. The board opposes this bill. The purpose of this bill is to clarify that plan review of electrical, plumbing, and building plans is considered lawful experience in engineering work. The board opposes this bill because it allows someone with insufficient experience to qualify for a professional engineer license, thereby jeopardizing the health, safety, and welfare of the consumer. A person reviewing plans and calculations may be aware of building codes, but they are not performing integrated design or other standard engineering practices. It is imperative that applicants have the full depth and breadth of experience required, as once licensed, Hawaii Revised Statute Section 464-1 allows professional engineers to provide the full range of engineering services, including consultation, investigation, evaluation, planning, design, or observation of construction or operation in connection with any public or private utilities, structures, buildings, machines, equipment, processes, works, or projects wherein the safeguarding of life, health, or property is concerned or involved. Further, Hawaii is a discipline-specific state. Professional engineers may only practice within the discipline or disciplines for which they are licensed: agricultural, chemical, civil, electrical, environmental, fire protection, industrial, mechanical, or structural engineering. An individual whose experience is comprised of 100% plan review in electrical, plumbing, or building plan review is not actually qualified to perform work in most of the engineering disciplines.
My apologies. Your 2 minutes are up. If you could please wrap up your testimony.
Okay.
Thank you.
The board respectfully requests that this measure be held in committee to allow it the opportunity to discuss this matter with the county's professional organizations and other stakeholders and complete the research begun by its permitted interaction. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I am available for any questions, as well as Executive Officer Sheena Choi.
Thank you. Next, we have Curtis Lum from the Department of Planning and Permitting and Support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Dawn Apuna, DPP. So hearing the testimony of the board, they say that this is a threat to public safety. What DPP does through its building permits is to check for health and safety. Like, that's what a building permit does. So that's what these plans examiners do. They check for health and safety based on the codes. This is very important to make sure that building permits go out. We have a backlog, I'm sure many of you know of, and we need engineers. Government engineers are very scarce because we cannot compete with the federal and the private salaries, although we're trying to work on that as well. But we have to change something here so that we have people that can have a long career at DPP checking plans. Like, we are the ultimate review and approval of these plans of engineers. So he talks about, consultation, this and that. I don't know if that's part of the actual test, but this will only allow people with government plan review experience to sit for the exam. They still have to take the exam, which is very rigorous, and they have to pass it. If they don't pass the exam, that's something, but can they sit for it based on years of experience as a government plans examining engineers? Again, I'd like to reiterate, we are the ones that approve plans that these engineers submit for building permits. So with that, strong support for this bill, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Reed Mizue from the American Institute of Architects, Hawaii, in opposition on Zoom. Not present. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony and support from the Honolulu City Council, County of Hawaii Planning Department, EAH Housing, Stanford Card Development, LLC, Pacific Resource Partnership, and one individual in support, and two individuals in support. Members, are there any questions? Representative Onishi.
For the city and county, so you're asking that the state allow the licensing of a plan reviewer with years of experience passing the test.
No, to sit for the exam.
To sit for the exam.
Yes, this does not say that they're automatically licensed. It allows them to sit. So I'm not an engineer, I'm an attorney, but I have to sit for the bar. And unless I pass that bar, I'm not a licensed attorney. So it's the same thing, but from what I understand, the engineering examination it's very rigorous. And so if they don't pass that, then yes, they won't be licensed. But this is just to sit for it based on years of experience as a government plans examining engineer.
Okay, so, and you said the reason the city supports this is because you can't hire engineers.
We have a hard time. So the salaries that we have are low compared to private, federal, et cetera. But what I think that the board is trying to interpret the law is that you need design experience, that you need to be able
Okay,
to.
well, yeah, irrespective of what, I'm trying to get down to why you want the law
Right,
passed.
so if this is their interpretation, then if I hire an engineer out of UH, they're saying that they'd have to go outside of DPP, get design experience outside of DPP in order to sit for the exam. I'm saying that the work.
Okay. Okay, so for you to hire an engineer, they have to be licensed.
No, they don't. They can come in and they can gain experience, and that it's, after so many years, we believe that they should be qualified to sit for the engineering exam.
Okay, you're misunderstanding I'm not asking who you can hire to be a plan reviewer. I'm asking you, who can you hire? What's the prerequisite for the city and county to hire an engineer?
Someone who has a degree in engineering, and I think it might be maybe 1 year, but we're trying to work on that where they can come in with just the degree and start working. And
They don't have to be licensed.
No, but we would expect that they would become licensed after so many years, because as a supervisor too, right? The ones that they should be licensed.
So if you can hire a person out of UH that's not licensed but has an engineering degree, then why do you need this bill?
Because all engineers want to be licensed at some point, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right.
that's true.
So
No, but we're talking about hiring people, right?
well,
Hiring
retaining.
people into a
Yes,
job.
so hiring, you're right. So if I'm an applicant or I'm a UH student and I'm looking at my options of careers, am I going to go to one where even if I stick with it, I'm not going to be able to sit for this exam? I'm going to have to go outside to get that experience in order to sit for the exam. We want people that will come in from UH and have a long career at DPP. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Like, ultimately, you want someone
Yeah,
that's
but
gonna-
you're not asking for an engineer.
I am asking for an engineer, but I think with all the other requirements for being licensed as an engineer, you need experience, right? So why can't government plans, engineering experience qualify that person to sit for the exam, as would any experience outside of government qualify you to sit for the exam?
Well, as I read this bill, there are 6 different ways a person can be licensed.
To sit for the exam.
Right. I don't see where all 6 requires design work.
Right,
So I don't know what your guys' issues are. I'm trying to figure out what your issue is.
So when we have an engineer who worked for us and he's trying to get his license, he's put in like six years at DPP. When he goes to sit before the board so they'll say you can sit for the exam, they say, no, you don't have any design experience. So what is design experience? He has to go out and work for a private company and get that experience. So it is an interpretation issue. So we're asking that the legislature clarify that you can have plans examining engineering experience to qualify for the exam without having design or consultation experience.
Yeah, so if
The board, please, yeah.
board,
Hello, Sheena Choi. I'm the executive officer for the board.
okay, you just heard the testimony from the city. So is that true? You cannot sit for the tests unless you've gotten private experience?
So no, the board in no area of our laws and rules differentiates between public experience and private experience. What I do want to clarify is you do need the requisite years of experience to qualify to sit for one of the engineering exams that qualifies you for licensure. And why that's important is that it's not just sitting for the exam. If you're approved by the board to sit for the exam and then you do pass the exam, on that same application, you then have a pathway to licensure. So it's you.
Okay, but the issue that we're being told now is that it requires private design experience.
And that's not true. It does not require private design experience.
Okay,
And
so what is the problem then why people who are applying from the public sector are being rejected for sitting for the exam?
So we can't speak to specific applications, right? So I know that they were referencing a specific applicant, and we can't talk to that specific person. But each person, when they submit their application for licensure, they basically submit their whole portfolio of experience. And the board sees each and every application in full, all of their list of experience, and they're looking at the sum total of that experience to see if that person, once licensed, will be qualified to perform all the different engineering actions that our HRS provides for. So in our testimony, we mentioned HRS 464-1. And while we understand that not all licensed engineers will perform every single one of those things, once licensed, they are authorized to perform all of those things. And so I can't speak to specific applications, but generally when there's only 100% plan review, as the board reviews the details of what that plan review experience has entailed, they have concerns for public health, safety, and welfare, like if that person's approved, they'll be qualified or authorized to, for example, design building plans for structures and residences, et cetera.
Okay. So,
sorry, can I add one more thing too? So the board doesn't not accept plan review as qualifying experience. It just doesn't currently accept 100% plan review. So I think maybe there might be a semantics issue. This bill proposes 100% plan review to be qualifying experience. And that's what the board has concerns about.
If I was a engineer graduate from UH, Manoa, and I worked for the city planning for 10 years, I can submit my application for taking the engineer's license. You guys are going to review it, look at my experience, what I've done as a plan reviewer, whatever, and make a determination as to whether or not I meet the minimum requirements for taking the tests.
The minimum requirements for being a licensed professional, which, so they're reviewing the experience, exam, and education qualifications of each applicant to ensure that they meet minimum competency standards for the health, safety, and welfare of the public.
What if I forgot to put something on my
So if you forgot, then the board reviews each application, and if they find that the experience is not does not meet the minimum qualifications, then we'll send a deficiency notice and say that, the board's reviewed your application and they have some concerns with your experience. Perhaps there's something that you would like to clarify further, and we do give opportunities for that during the period of time that their application is open, and they do have 2 years to continue to go back and forth with the board to provide more information.
Okay. And what percentage of applications do you guys reject? Or
So denial of applications is not quite common, at least since I've been the executive officer of the board. Usually the first, second, third course of action for the board is to defer because there's opportunities for either the person to clarify their information further. In the 2 years, perhaps they will, choose to get additional experience. Even for sitting for the exam, applying through the Hawaii board is one way to get approval, but they could also apply with another state board that has different requirements that perhaps at the time that they're applying, they meet those requirements, and then they can get approval, for example, from the California board to sit for the exam. And then they can wait a little longer if they need more experience to then qualify for licensure with Hawaii. So they do have other options to, one, meet the experience requirements, or two, to apply to sit for the exam.
Okay, but you don't have any numbers, like,
Sorry, I could look, but I would say that it's quite low, that an application would be outright denied.
okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members. Any further questions? Actually, I do have questions for DPP. Hi, so I'd like to understand the scope of the issue. I think what Representative Onishi was getting after, if this were to pass, perhaps with your amendments or not, how many people would, qualify to take the test?
So just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with right now, we have, so for commercial projects, for building permits, we have the 3 disciplines, building, mechanical, and electrical. We have 3 mechanical engineers, 3 electrical, and about 5 building for all of the commercial projects for this whole island. And we have 5 openings for each, so 15 openings that we have not been able to fill. But it should apply. We want to be able to recruit from UH or other engineering schools. We just think that, we are unique. We're not like other engineers out there. We do a kind of unique job, but it's important because all of this stuff goes through us. But as far as a universe, I want to be able to have that for our engineers, our plan reviewing engineers. So we're so thin right now, it's hard for us to recruit. And I think this is one way that we can just clearly show that if you're thinking about a government engineering job, that you can have a clear path within DPP. Like, we're trying to make it a true career.
I think you understand. Your amendments that you propose on page 2 of your written testimony,
Yes.
you changed the verbiage of plan review to code compliance review. Is that a technical term, or how is that different from the original language?
So I think the newer language it's a little bit broader. But it basically covers mechanical, electrical, and building, which are the main disciplines that we check for health and safety.
Okay. Because also in the amendments, you crossed out electrical, plumbing, and building.
Yeah.
And then replaced it with plans for construction applicable to the specific engineering field. So
Right.
I guess that's
It's
broader.
basically broader, but basically the same.
Okay.
Through practice.
Okay, thank you. And for Sheena Choi? So I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at these proposed amendments by DPP, but from what was described, this verbiage change from plan review to code compliance review, any thoughts on that and how that impacts your position?
Sure. Apologies as I wasn't able to review it in depth because it wasn't posted before the hearing, but I understand the proposed amendments was to change the language of plan review to code compliance. And, as mentioned previously, the board does accept some plan review experience as qualifying for licensure. And so our suggestion, as mentioned in our testimony, is that the measure be held so the board can allow its permitted interaction group more time to research the matter further. So they They currently have a permitted interaction group researching the state laws and rules of all the different states and jurisdictions in the U.S. And we plan to reach out to the various counties and other agencies for input on this matter once we finish all the research. So I think that that might be the better time to can have the board opine on this language.
When was this
change.
permitted interaction group set up?
So it was formed in June of last year, and it was in response, I know a similar measure was introduced, so the board wanted to take action on it. And they've been getting feedback from the other states preliminarily on the rules and regulations there.
And is there an estimated timeline for when this group will have its final reports or conclusions?
We hope to have it soon, and we understand that there is urgency as this has come up before, and so that's why they formed the PIG.
Soon as in like before sessions, Paul, or like by the end of the year?
I'm sorry, I can't get specific to that.
Okay.
We can talk about dates, at least for convening the different stakeholders, like the counties and Department of Planning and Permitting. We can do that.
Because it would be helpful to have
Sure.
more background information as to what other states and jurisdictions are doing in terms of compliance
Yeah.
and licensure. But
Yes.
also, it does raise some concerns. Like, look, that these people that have been working in, say, City and County of Honolulu DPP for 6 years, they can't even qualify to take the test. And of course, they still need to, pass the test to get the licensure, right?
Yeah, yes.
Fundamentally, so.
Yeah, I understand the concerns. As I mentioned before, they can apply with other state boards. It doesn't make a difference where you apply to qualify to sit for the exam. So they can qualify in other places to sit for the exam. And just preliminarily, I know that the permitted interaction group can't share their findings because they have to follow what's in HRS 92-2.5 on permitted interaction groups. But just based on the responses that they've gotten so far, it doesn't seem like the majority of states allow 100% plan review to qualify for licensure.
Okay. Thank you. Members, any further questions?
Follow up?
Representative Onishi.
That's for the city.
Okay.
Did I hear you correctly? You said you have 15 vacancies?
Yes.
Does the city offer a shortage differential?
Yes.
How much is the shortage?
I don't know the exact amount, but there's already a shortage differential in place. And we're looking at other ways salaries are a whole other area that we have to come up a little. Like we're like $50,000 less than federal, right? Like it's very difficult to compete.
Well, it is the market. There's no reason why, just because you work for the government, you have to be the lowest paid
Right.
person on the block, correct?
Correct.
That's why you offer shortage differential.
Right.
So, I do know for psychologists or at least for doctors, we owe upper $5,000 shortage differentials.
Right.
So the idea is to get enough staffing so you can do your work.
That's right.
Right? So you would think that if you're more than 50% vacant, you would really look at the tools that are available to you to try to hire licensed engineers and provide them a career path so that they'll stay. You're asking for a career path, but once they get licensed, they're going to get hired by an outside firm for more.
Not necessarily. When I speak to engineers, people take pride in working for city government. Like we do something special, I think, and it's not always the case that they want to get their license and they're going to automatically go out to private to make more money. Like people, even me, I work for the city because I believe in public service at this level. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the case, that they're just going to do that. And we're working on all of that. The salary's got to come up. We got to give them training. We have to do all these things, but it's everything. Like they need to be able to see a clear pathway. And right now they don't.
This isn't a new issue.
It isn't, but when are we going to fix it?
Well, it's up to the city to fix it. It's
It
not
is,
up to the state.
well, it's part of it. Like, how can they see a clear path? And to speak to that situation, I can't speak to the specifics too, but I went to the board and it was about, they need design experience. So it did feel that that candidate had to go out, had to leave DPP, even though he's one of those that likes working for the city. He takes great pride in it, but he couldn't qualify because he didn't have design experience or consultation experience.
Because your career out ladder depends on licensure.
Well, because you want to, don't you want to move up and see a full career as a licensed practitioner? I think so.
Need it, I guess, but
Yeah,
if you
I
don't
mean-
need it, and I can still move up and get the same pay.
No, you
I
can't,
mean,
because you can't become a supervisor if you're not licensed.
that's a city requirement
It is. It's a state requirement too.
for a state job.
Yeah, I believe it is. At
Yeah.
some level, like at Engineer 5,
Yeah.
you should be licensed.
But that's up to you guys. That's not up to the industry.
What is up to us to get
Whether or
the,
not you're requiring a license for that position.
but that's in line with what anyone would want to do. Do you want to just go to law school and get your law degree and just practice forever without being licensed? Like, that's considered a full-fledged lawyer. That's a full-fledged engineer. Why are government engineers treated differently than non-government? Like, we're working for the people. Why can't we get the same thing? Because we don't have consultation experience, we don't have design experience. You're like, it is like a lower, you talk about us raising salaries, but what about the standard of what a license means? A license is a valuable thing.
Well, in my mind, a license allows you to stamp drawings, right?
Yeah.
And
so-
put your career on the line.
Right. And also to approve plans, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that you have the ability to stamp. It's the same level,
But is
whether
it your
you-
personal career on the line, or is it the county's?
It is,
Whose
based on.
liability?
Well, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, in some sense, don't you want licensed engineers approving your plans, reviewing and approving the plans that are coming through
Well, that's
government?
why we hire licensed engineers to draw the plans.
That's right. But doesn't
Because
it make
that's what
sense?
you require.
Right, so shouldn't that be on par with the people that are approving those plans?
I don't know, man. Everybody has their own interpretation of what the law requires.
I suppose so, but I think that we are stuck.
Okay.
We're kind of capped when we don't. And I'd just like to address just one thing, please. The urgency of this is important. We came here last year, it didn't happen, but this is all tied to building permits and affordable housing. We have to fix these things in order to run faster, to process faster, to get the capacity in order to approve permits for building affordable housing, single-family housing, all of that. So it is important, and I think the urgency is there.
One quick follow-up on that, actually. Does in DPP or in any position in DPP, does it not offer opportunities to have those, design experience or consultation experiences that you described?
Not within DPP. I mean, I think there are instances where you can, I guess, consult, where they can go out into the field and look at what is being built based on the building permit. So that's part that we are working on. I think we want to give a full experience to our staff.
So it's just not within, I guess, the scope of work that DPP employees would have, right, design experience or, I guess, more
Yeah.
specific consultation experience. Does that sound about right?
I suppose so, but what is design, right? I mean, is it because you're actually designing it or you're reviewing the design for its compliance with the code? I mean, even that interpretation, to me, it's not clear.
Okay. Okay. Members, any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2525 relating to liquor license. First to testify on this measure, actually, is there any persons here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none. Members, we do have written testimony in opposition from Lanikai Brewing Company. Big Island Brew House, Craft Ohana, Pacific Bar Association, Kauai Beer Company, Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, Mahala Brewing Company, Village Bottle Shop and Tasting Room, Scarlet Honolulu Incorporated, and 4 individuals in opposition, 1 individual in support. We'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, HB 2049. This is relating to Hawaii Property Insurance Association. First to testify, we have the Insurance Division from the State of Hawaii, DCCA, and its support.
Hi. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Jerry Bump with DCCA. We'll stand on our testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we do have written testimony from the Hawaii Property Insurance Association with comments. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 1989 HD1 relating to raw milk. First to testify on this measure, we have the Department of Health in opposition.
Hi, afternoon, Chair Nakashima, members of the committee. My name is Peter Oshiro. I'm the program manager for the Department of Health's Food Safety Branch. So if you're familiar with our stoplight placarding system, green means go, yellow means caution, and red means stop. So we're requesting that you defer this bill. None of the claims made by the raw milk advocates that we have examined for you can withstand scientific scrutiny. That's why I have an 11-page testimony given to you folks. We had to debunk every single myth that was proposed on the bill. Unfortunately, the false quote-unquote health benefits claims of raw milk advocates may cause parents to give raw milk to their children and prompt immunocompromised people, such as pregnant women, the elderly, and hospitalized patients who want better nutrition to also start consuming raw milk. It is these very same subgroups of the population, however, that are most at risk at becoming ill or even dying from foodborne illnesses as a result of consuming adulterated raw milk. Since raw milk may contain human pathogens, the consumption of raw milk products increases the risk of gastrointestinal illness due to the likelihood that it may contain infective doses of human pathogens. This includes our keiki, kupuna, and any other person who is immunocompromised due to illness or treatment of illnesses. The only method proven to be reliable in reducing the level of human pathogens in milk and milk products is by those milk products being produced and processed under sanitary conditions and subsequently being properly pasteurized. So please, at the end of my testimony, there's an FDA fact sheet entitled The Dangers of Raw Milk. Please visit that site. And if you don't believe the Department of Health, please Google raw milk and see what the first things that come up. And all it talks about is the dangers of drinking raw milk in no way outweigh any benefits as being proposed by raw milk advocates. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you. Next, we have the Hawaii Department of Agriculture in opposition.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Keith Otsuka. I'm the acting manager of the Commodities Branch. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. We stand on our written testimony in opposition to House Bill 1989, and I'll be available for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Margaret Coleman from the Coleman Scientific Consulting, Weston A. Price Foundation in support on Zoom.
Hello, aloha. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I am a medical microbiologist and a risk analyst specializing in benefit and risk assessments for microbial pathogens and food safety. My credentials include 2 graduate degrees and more than 30 years of experience in microbial risk analysis, initially for USDA and currently as a consultant. My expertise in microbial risk analysis is recognized in the US and internationally, evidenced by my recognition as a fellow of the Society for Risk Analysis, SRA, in 2020, as an elected counselor of SRA, and as a member of the advisory board of the Raw Milk Institute. An extensive body of evidence is cited in my written testimony, including 30 peer-reviewed studies, more than 30, and also a supporting slide set. No scientific evidence supports the claim that raw milk produced for direct human consumption in the 21st century is inherently dangerous. For human breast milk, or milk from cows and goats. Please pass this bill and permit consumers to choose real milk, fresh and unprocessed, complete with its natural beneficial microbiota, illustrated in my supplemental slides. I have a short overview. My testimony is based on current evidence and peer-reviewed analyses that contradict major misconceptions about raw milk commonly offered without scientific support by individuals and organizations with pro-pasteurization biases. Slide 3 of the slide set includes the 6 points that I'm going to discuss briefly, and it provides data and charts from peer-reviewed studies, including a manuscript on a data set on U.S. outbreaks provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, for reporting years 2005 to 2020.
My apologies, Ms. Coleman. Your 2-minute time limit is up. Can you please wrap up your testimony?
An extensive body of evidence is cited in my written testimony. There is no scientific evidence that supports the claim that raw milk produced for direct human consumption in the 21st century is inherently dangerous. Please pass this bill and permit consumers to choose real milk, fresh and unprocessed, complete with its natural beneficial microbiota, illustrated in my supplemental slides. I will be available for questions if there are any.
Thank you. Next,
Thank
we
you.
have Esther Arkfield, individual in support on Zoom.
Good afternoon. My name is Esther Arkfeld. Thank you for allowing me to testify on this bill. I would like to ask you to support this bill. I own and operate a small raw dairy in Iowa, and until last year, the distribution of raw milk was considered illegal in our state. We worked 17 long years to change the law in our state. Last year, we finally passed a law that would allow farm to direct consumer sales. Since then, things have gone well here. Our bill language is very similar to the bill proposed here. This includes safety measures such as bacteria testing of the milk and health testing of the animals. Raw dairying is not some dirty, unsafe practice. While this may have been true back in the 18th and 19th century, this isn't necessarily the case in our 21st century. Just like commercial dairying has progressed in leaps and bounds, so is the practice of raw dairying. People who choose raw dairy aren't ignorant or uneducated. Most people who choose raw dairy have done a significant amount of research. When they choose to make a separate trip to a farm, they do this for good reason. I would like to share some statistics. 46 of the 50 states within our great country allow the access to raw milk one way or another. All top 10 dairy states allow access to raw milk. 5 of those allow it to be sold in retail stores. 3 allow on-farm sales, 1 through herd shares, and 1 by incidental sales. By allowing the sale of raw milk for its citizens, Hawaii won't be forging the way for some fringe movement. Rather, it will be joining the rest of the 46 other states who already allow access to raw milk. It will allow its citizens the right to consumer choice, and by doing so, it will support its local small family farms who so desperately need local support. Thank you for your time, and thank you for considering supporting this bill.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony in support from Kanalani Ohana Farm. In opposition?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Pete Kennedy. I'm signed to testify.
Okay, Pete, go ahead. And if possible, can you please turn on your video camera?
The camera doesn't work, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm an attorney with the Weston Price Foundation. Weston Price has members in all 50 states, including Hawaii. I've worked on legal issues governing raw milk distribution for the past 20 years. I've consulted on state and federal milk legislation and drafted raw milk bills as well, as including one in Hawaii several years ago. I'm familiar with the raw milk laws in every state. As Esther Arkfeld said, 46 states have legalized the sale or distribution of raw milk through either statute, regulation, or policy. Demand is currently booming. Weston Price has a website, realmilk.com. Over 1,000 people go there every day to look for a source of raw milk for the first time. What's interesting is that as the demand is going up, according to the last year I have on record from the Center for Disease Control, the illnesses that year actually went down. At the same time, there's this substantial increase in demand. According to CDC, in 2020, there were 5 foodborne illness outbreaks and 28 total illnesses blamed on raw milk. I've worked on foodborne illness cases for them for over a decade, and generally it's even less of a problem with the smaller dairies. As you know, the bill limits dairies to 10 cows or less. So in just summary, and any fear mongering on raw milk isn't productive. There's plenty of evidence that it can be safely produced. Like I mentioned earlier, as demand has gone up the past 15 years, the number of illnesses has remained flat or even gone down some years like it had in 2020.
Sorry, Mr. Kennedy, your 2-minute time limit is up. Can you please summarize and wrap up your testimony?
Yeah, just so this bill fills the need for consumer demand and enables farmers to make a better living. Raw milk is a draw to get the customer on the farm, and yeah, it's time to legalize it. There are more illnesses with foods like lettuce on the market right now. So I urge the committee members to vote for HB 1989. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other persons on Zoom to testify on this measure in person?
Hello, this is Hubert Karaman. I think I signed up.
Okay, Mr. Karaman, please go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. I'm a large animal veterinarian since 1995 that has specialized in dairy animals, and I started as a herdsman with goats and then cows in the 1980s, then as a veterinarian for about 100 certified organic dairy farms in Pennsylvania, and now I own my own dairy farm here in North Carolina with about 75 Jersey cows. As a veterinarian, I may have some unique insights into the raw milk bill that you are considering. First, it's really not rocket science to say that raw milk is basic to mammalian biology. All mammals, 4-legged and 2-legged, drink raw milk when young and suckling. Its constituents are easily recognized by the digestive tract, whereas pasteurized milk proteins become somewhat denatured and can appear foreign to the digestive tract, causing intestinal upset. Cats and dogs fed raw milk do not get diarrhea like those same animals that drink pasteurized milk when consuming the same amounts. Pocket pets like hamsters, gerbils, mice, and rats will have rougher hair coats when fed pasteurized milk compared to being fed raw milk because the vitamin B6 content in raw milk is higher due to not being denatured by pasteurization. Goat milk is an excellent source of vitamin A, and that's also very important for good vision. Goat milk comes from the doe already pre-homogenized, which can be important for some animals' digestive systems. Why am I focusing on the digestive system? Because our immune system depends on proper digestion for optimal efficiency. Denatured foreign substances, i.e. pastured proteins, are looked at as foreign by the body, and bad reactions are the outcomes. The bad reactions cause inflammation, which is the root of many illnesses of both pets and people. I would urge you to allow people to have a choice if they want to give their pets raw milk or pasteurized milk. Raw milk made well is medicinal. Certainly,
My
go ahead and
apologies,
set up
your
standards
2-minute
for it.
time limit has expired. If you could please wrap up your testimony.
Sure. There were local medical boards started in the 1920s that set up standards for certified raw milk. The last board existed until the 1970s or so. In closing, a mammal's closest connection to its original source of life, its mother, is through raw milk, suckled or freely drank. All animals I know enjoy milk. Please allow the natural design of animals to be honored and enhanced by allowing raw milk for pets. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I believe we have Brian.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. My apologies, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it, so I did click written testimony on all our submitted testimonies today. The Hawaii Farm Bureau respectfully will stand on its written testimony in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other persons here to testify on this measure? Okay, seeing none, members, we do have 7 individuals in support, 1 individual in opposition. Members, any questions? Chair?
Farm Bureau.
Hi, Chair.
Good afternoon. Just wondering, how much milk is produced in Hawaii?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have that data with me, but my understanding is if we're talking about cow milk, we have basically 1 commercial dairy left here in Hawaii.
Okay, and how many gallons do they account for?
Maybe the Department of Agriculture can give you that data, but not very much. We don't see milk other than basically, I think, on Hawaii Island at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Follow? Department of Health.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I noticed all of the statistics that you've thrown at us. I'm wondering how many cases of illness from raw milk were there in the last 5 years? Because all of the data I see is 10, 12 years old.
In Hawaii, it's 0 because we don't allow raw milk to be sold.
Okay, well, your statistics are not Hawaii.
Right, these are nationwide statistics. So the latest I had is basically what's in my testimony about the numbers of illnesses that occurred. And these are strictly from the CDC and the FDA.
Mm-hmm. So nothing in the last 5 years?
Oh, no, there are definitely illnesses in the last 5 years, and I can get you the exact number. The last numbers I had ended in 2018, but absolutely illnesses did not disappear from 2018 to 2023. In fact, I'm willing to bet that they actually have gone up. It was mentioned about the 3...
2018 is more than 5 years
Correct,
ago.
it's 5 years ago, right.
It's more than 5 years ago.
Correct. So I don't have data with me from 2018 to the present.
So is there no data?
Though there is data, I just don't have it with me currently.
Okay. So as you created this 12-page report, you couldn't find anything more recent than 2018?
Well, I guess I didn't include in this testimony. No, I didn't research between 2018 and the present. When I looked to the CDC and FDA websites, that's what I pulled down from their websites, yeah.
And then for your information, when I Googled whole milk or raw milk, I have Lifeway whole milk available at Safeway $7.49, freeze-dried raw milk, goat's milk for dogs and cats at $13.7, organic raw milk at Gold Eggs at $6.99.
I don't think that's raw milk in Hawaii. We don't allow raw milk sales here.
But you told me to Google it, so I did.
No. Yeah, what I meant, if you Google raw milk, you'll see the dangers of raw milk, why you should
Yeah, well, I'm not seeing the dangers of raw milk. I'm seeing all the milk for sale throughout the United States.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Representative Onishi?
Yes, Department of Health. Excuse me. Thanks for being here. I also Googled the CDC, CDC raw milk. The first page that comes up saying, drinking raw milk can lead to serious illness. Raw milk is linked to many preventable foodborne illnesses and outbreaks every year. In fact, raw milk is one of the riskiest foods. Would you agree with that statement on the CDC website?
That's absolutely true. And, don't believe me, call up your physician, call up your pediatrician, and ask them if it's okay to feed your family raw milk. And you'll get a resounding no. The American Academy of Pediatrics will not recommend you feed your child raw milk. And I find it very unusual that testimony has equated drinking mother's breast milk to drinking raw cow milk. I'm sorry, but my mom filled me breast milk, but she never rolled in her own urine and feces before she did so. That's a big, big difference. So to equate feeding human breast milk with drinking raw cow milk, I mean, I don't even know where that's coming from. That's frankly insane.
Yeah, and unfortunate, we don't have any bills here on mother's milk before this committee today.
And
But
we would
I do
never
know
suggest that you pasteurize that.
having my daughters who have children, they're taught how to sanitize before they feed their babies. You know, I mean, anyway. It also, I went to the website and I don't see any data on the website when you Google it after 2018. It shows 1998 to 2018.
Right, because these comprehensive studies are not done every single year, right? They do it in groups. So as they're studying quote unquote raw milk, for the CDC and the FDA, it's just a no-brainer. There's no sense in studying this issue anymore. The whole reason why pasteurization was invented in the 1920s, only one reason. It was to reduce infant mortality. Why are we insisting on going back in time to increase that? I mean, it's just, I don't understand. I mean, I've been a public health practitioner for 30 years. I have no agenda other than to protect public health. I don't belong to an alliance. I don't belong to a lobbying group. I'm not part of any organization that would be considered right-wing or left-wing. All we look at is science, and it's frightening to me that it's being obliterated, literally.
So do you have, I mean, you're with the Department of Health. Obviously, there are national conferences and stuff. Do you understand why states have legalized raw milk?
Yes, it's the food freedom laws. So people have the ideology that it's okay to sell people anything you want because it's freedom, right? The government, it's the whole thing, get government out of my business. But you're gonna find that government here, especially the Department of Health, is here to protect you from things that you cannot protect yourselves from, which means if you eat at a restaurant, you can't go in the back of the house and inspect it. I can. Government's responsibility to the people is that I go in there, I make an inspection to ensure that the public is served safe food. That's what the whole thing is. If you just say go ahead and feed raw milk to anybody, I mean, I don't understand how you can go ahead and take the chance with people's lives and health just based on ideology that government should get out of your business of selling raw milk when it's a dangerous practice. The FDA will not allow interstate commerce of raw milk for that very reason.
Chair, if I can have a follow-up. I
Go ahead.
noticed that the AG is still here. Can I ask the AG a question?
Go ahead.
I know you probably, since you didn't submit testimony, you probably didn't review this bill, but this bill calls to allow raw milk producers to sell their milk, their raw milk. I guess if the state allows them to sell raw milk, what is the producer's liability in regards to if someone bought their product and then got sick, or eventually they did die? What would be, in your mind, the liability to the producer or to the state?
Deputy Attorney General Travis Moon. So I'm just writing down your question.
no
I'm
problem.
probably going to have to take a look at this after the hearing, and I can get back to you on the liability questions for the state and for raw milk producers.
Okay, because this has been characterized as, allowing immunity to producers. I mean, right now, there are requirements for processes and testing, but I mean, we're not funding the testing. We're not saying what kinds of tests are going to be required, how often they have to be tested, and I don't have any idea what other states might require. And so, it's without knowing much of the details, just allowing it seems to open up a whole can of worms, considering the possibility, and I guess the categorization by the CDC that this is one of the most dangerous products or food products. So if you guys could take a look at it and get back to the chair.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions? Chair.
Thank you. I wonder if Margaret Coleman is still available on Zoom?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I was wondering if you had any information on milk illnesses in the last 5 years.
Yes, I do. So if you look at do you have my written testimony in front of you? You'll see a number of charts, and there you'll see toward the end of the presentation, trends of milk-borne illnesses, CDC 2005 to 2020. There were, in fact, 2 deaths associated with raw milk in this period, but there were 4 deaths associated with pasteurized milk. And you'll see that there were more illnesses associated with pasteurized milk than there were with raw milk. Yes, there are more consumers of pasteurized milk, but still, pasteurization is not a silver bullet. No food is risk-free. And my position as a raw milk drinker for more than 10 years is give people the freedom of choice. You've heard from a veterinarian and from others that there are benefits. There are actually studies from Europe where children do better on raw milk. They do not have GI illnesses. There were no deaths in those studies. I think that the pro-pasteurization bias is not science-driven at all. It's ideological. So I'm showing you data. It's data from CDC. We have an access database for this 16-year period, and it is not showing increasing illness associated with raw milk, even though consumption is increasing. You'll see slides also from California and New York, where we have production estimates and estimates of number of licenses increasing dramatically, and no outbreaks from 2014 in one state and since 2016 in the other. I am trying to present peer-reviewed evidence, solid evidence, evidence from the CDC that disputes the allegations made by some of those testifying today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Members, any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll be moving on to the next measure on the agenda, HB 2337, HD1, relating to pesticides. First to testify, we have Anna Weiserick from the University of Hawaii in support. Not here, okay. Next, we have Hawaii Department of Agriculture in support. Thank you. Next, we have Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau in support. Thank you. Any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony and support from the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. Okay, members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2773, HD1, relating to agriculture product labeling. First to testify, we have Travis Moon from the Attorney General's office with comments.
Good afternoon, Deputy Attorney General Travis Moon with comments. We provided comments in our written testimony stating that the bill could be subject to a dormant commerce clause challenge and provided recommended revisions to the bill in our written testimony. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the Hawaii Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Richard Cohen from Measurement Standards Branch. We offer comments on this bill and stand on our written testimony. I'm here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Gerard Bastiance from the Hawaii Coffee Company in opposition.
Hello again, members of the committee, Chair, Vice Chair. We entirely support the intent of the law, and much like the Department of Justice, have strong concerns regarding the violation of federal law, the Commerce Clause specifically related to trademarks, and believe the bill should be held. Available for questions.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey Clark from Edmund Olson Trust, number 2, in support on Zoom. Jeffrey Clark. Okay, maybe if you're connected again, we'll come back around. Next, we have Eric Kingma from the Hawaii Longline Association in support. Not here. Okay. Is Jeffrey Clark connected yet? Okay, no. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Oh, yes. Brian Miyamoto from the Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You have our written testimony supporting intent. We absolutely support protecting our Hawaii brands. However, we do have concerns with the definition of blended, especially on page 4. We're not sure if that's applying to value-added products. If it is, 75% is pretty difficult. As you can see in our testimony, some products, coffee, jams, and jellies contain ingredients. They may have the primary ingredients, such as lilikoi or even the cacao, but the other ingredients, such as sugar, milk, butter, are not local. Again, with the last closure in 2016 of our sugar plantation and the conversation on milk with having basically one commercial dairy available right now, access to those local products to make a value-added product that has 75% percentile may be difficult. So other than that, we do support the intent of the measure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other persons here to testify on this measure? Please go ahead. And for the record, please state your name and organization. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Ashley, if you could help. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Eric Kingbaum, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Longline Association. And we're testifying in support of this bill with some suggested amendments. The Hawaii Longline Association, we're the largest food producer in the state. We have 150 vessels down at Pier 38. We deliver fresh, ice-chilled, locally caught fish daily. We believe that this is moving in the right direction for ag products to be have more information to consumers, but we think that it should also be extended to seafood. And we also understand that most of the seafood sold and poke in particular in retail establishments are foreign imported, gas treated, previously frozen, and very little of this information is provided to consumers. And so it's about time that changed. Even retailers go as far as saying is locally made or freshly made in the display case for poke products, and we believe that it's time that, including this bill, to include processed ahi and to provide consumers information on where this processed ahi comes from. And that could be either, Hawaiian landed, or it could be the country of origin. And there's examples in my testimony of pictures of major retailers today misleading consumers on the origin and the information about this product. I think we're not trying to limit the product coming into the marketplace, even though it's undercutting Hawaii landed fish. Just give consumers the information so they can make the accurate or make their own choice on what they want to buy. And I'll just stand on my written testimony, and hopefully this bill can go forward, but also be amended to include seafood and in particular processed raw ahi. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other persons here to testify on this measure, here in person or on Zoom? Okay, seeing none, members, we do have written testimony in support from Council District 8, North Kona, Hawaii County, Rancho Aloha Coffee Farm, Kanalani Ohana Farm, Hawaii Farm Bureau in support, Cyanotech Corporation in support, Kona Kohala Chamber of Commerce in support, and 4 individuals in support. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Nishi, please go ahead.
Eric, thanks for being here. Long time no see. I do have a question in regards to the word process. If I import gassed ahi from wherever, Asia, and chop it up in Hawaii, is that processed? And mix it with ogo and, show you whatever?
That's right. That's my understanding is the country of origin labeling requirements then is eliminated. If it's a whole fillet and not processed, the country of origin labeling, it should be maintained. But once there is one added ingredient or further processing, I believe the retailers think that goes away. But like the bill, I believe, includes processed macadamia nuts now as written. And so processed ahi would be in the same category as processed macadamia nuts.
Yeah, but just to clarify, you're looking for actually raw, untreated ahi in Hawaii, right? That's being protected.
Yeah, it could be on both sides of the equation. Either it's retailers required to have locally landed ahi be labeled as such, or the foreign product that is processed include more information on country of origin.
Well, I've seen previously frozen, right? Because most of the gas ahi is frozen. Well, they gotta freeze it, right? In order to ship it to Hawaii. So I don't know if the word process makes sense for certain types of foods, Anyway, I just wanted to get some clarification from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2654 relating to building codes. First to testify, we have Mike Nerozi from the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute on Zoom in support.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm Bob Toyofuku, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chair and members. Mike Nerozi was not able to stay on Zoom, and so wanted me to just testify on his behalf. I represent the air conditioning and refrigeration industry. Basically, they stand on their written testimony. All of the background is noted in the written testimony, but basically all this bill does is to amend the Hawaii State Building Code to allow any EPA-approved refrigerant to be used in newly devised equipment. The problem was that Congress gave EPA the right to come up with new refrigerants instead of hydrofluorocarbons, which they're phasing out. And the equipment is being retrofitted, and so could be a conflict between the state building code and what the EPA does, and that's all this bill does, is to make it clear that the EPA refrigerants are allowable. But I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Beth Porter from the Environmental Investigation Agency in support on Zoom.
Good afternoon. I'm Beth Porter, testifying on behalf of the Environmental Investigation Agency in support of HB 2654. EIA is an independent organization that has participated in international and domestic climate policy on fluorinated gases for more than 3 decades. Hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, are powerful greenhouse gases that accelerate climate change. These gases, commonly used as refrigerants in air conditioning and refrigeration, have global warming potentials up to thousands of times that of the same amount of carbon dioxide. To address these harmful impacts, as was previously noted, the U.S. Congress passed the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act to phase down the production and use of HFCs by 85% by 2036. Under these federal regulations to meet this target, HFCs currently used as refrigerants in the stationary, residential, and light commercial air conditioning and heat pump sectors will be prohibited as of January 2025. This legislation is pivotal to ensure that more climate-friendly alternatives can be adopted into air conditioning and heat pump equipment being sold in Hawaii by next year, when these federal regulations go into effect. It allows refrigerants that are approved under updated national safety standards for equipment and federal EPA regulations to be used in the state. Failing to do so could delay the most climate-friendly and energy-efficient cooling and heating equipment from being adopted in the state, and unnecessarily hamper the implementation of the HFC phase down nationally. The vast majority of states, except for 5, have updated their codes or adopted legislation to do so, opening the pathway to accelerate the transition away from HFCs. To ensure the timely availability of air conditioners and heat pumps in Hawaii using federally approved HFC alternatives, it is necessary to allow the use of alternative refrigerants where currently restricted under Hawaii building codes, provided that they have been approved for safe use under EPA regulations and comply with relevant nationalized recognized safety standards. This is why EIA strongly supports HB 2654, which will establish that Hawaii state building codes will allow that transition away from HFCs, support meeting consumer demand for air conditioning systems that are consistent with federal regulatory requirements. Thank you for the opportunity to comment in support.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony in support from the Department of Health, HECA's Building Decarbonization Task Force, Hawaii Climate Action Coalition, and Climate Protectors Hawaii. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, HB 2089 HD1, relating to the State Building Code. First to testify on this measure, we have the Hawaii State Energy Office with comments.
Good evening. It's almost evening, committee members. I'm Howard Wigg, Hawaii State Energy Office. We stand on our testimony with comments and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Evan Owe from NIOP Hawaii chapter in support. Thank you. Next, we have Stephanie Sakamoto from BIA Hawaii in support. Thank you. Next, we have Jacob Carson from ASHRAE with comments on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jacob Carson. I'm the Associate Manager of Government Advocacy and Outreach for ASHRAE. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. Our members design and build the HVAC systems used in Hawaii and nationwide. They also write the commercial energy standard used in Hawaii's Building Energy Code. On behalf of our more than 250 ASHRAE members in Hawaii, thank you for this opportunity to testify and provide comments. Our full comments were submitted to the committee as an attachment, but I do wish to emphasize a few points. We had formerly opposed this legislation because it would have seen Hawaii change from a 3-year update cycle for the state's Building Energy Code to a 6-year cycle. The intent behind this was to reduce housing costs, but the underpinning idea that Hawaii's adoption of a modern energy code and standard would be responsible for the high housing costs, and that ceasing to adopt an up-to-date energy code would bring down housing costs is incorrect. With the amendment offered by the House Committee on Water and Land, our concerns have largely been alleviated. Not updating the energy code in sync with the 3-year publication cycle would have left massive energy efficiency gains on the table. And this would in turn have caused business owners, homeowners, and tenants to pay higher utility bills while also failing to mitigate the release of thousands of tons of unmitigated greenhouse gas emissions per year. Simply put, we originally opposed the legislation because updating the building energy standard is not the primary driver of high construction costs, and because failing to update the standard would come at a huge cost in terms of economic and environmental impact. But with the amendment offered, we now feel this legislation's on much better footing. I would also be remiss, though, if I did not say that I think a robust defense of the value of on-cycle updates for the International Building Code and the International Residential Code has been missing from this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Joshua Wish from the Holomua Collaborative in support. Not here. Okay. Next, we'll be moving on to Reed Mizue from the American Institute of Architects, Hawaii, in opposition on Zoom. Okay. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we do have written testimony in support from the County of Hawaii Planning Department, Stanford Card Development LLC, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, HPM Building Supply, DR Horton Hawaii, General Contractors Association of Hawaii with comments, as well as Blue Planet Foundation with comments, Holomua Collaborative in support, Hawaii Energy with comments, Gentry Homes in support, 1 individual in opposition, and 2 individuals in support. Members, any questions? Okay, actually, I do have a question for the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious as to what the current timeline is for the state and I guess the respective counties to adopt new building codes.
Now, nationally, there's a 3-year code cycle. All building codes are to be updated every 3 years. And currently, we should be on, looking just at the energy code, we should be on 2021 IECC. And we're in fact on 2018. And we have 2024 coming up pretty shortly. And that applies not just to the energy code, but in different timelines to all building codes.
Okay. So within this cycle, how long, I mean, right, we do have the 3 years that you had mentioned, but truly how long does it take from the codes to be, right, introduced and then adopted by respective counties? Does it only take 3 years or does it take longer?
It takes a good solid 2 years, mostly 2-point-something years.
Okay.
It's a process regarding many different parties.
Thank you for that clarification. No further questions. Members, any further questions?
Yeah.
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I guess Office of Planning. So I read in the committee report, it says reverting to the existing schedule of adoption, amendment, or update of the Hawaii State Building Code. Isn't the current system every 3 years?
The current system is every 3 years.
But the bill still says every other cycle.
Yeah, which makes it 3 plus 3. So that would revert
6,
to
correct?
6 years, yes.
So if a significant change came down in between, the state would not have to adopt that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And incidentally, this particular bill applies only to the International Building Code, which covers commercial buildings, and the International Residential Code. All other codes, according to this bill, are still on the 3-year cycle.
Okay. Okay, can I go ask that, who's that guy from the environmental, whatever?
Sure. You mean
that the
Ashray
last
from Jacob Carson?
Yeah.
Jacob Carson, yes.
Hi, so your concern was not in regards to So your concern, I thought, was about the International Building Code.
No. So our concern was limited to the energy code. In the House Committee on Water and Land, there was an amendment offered to essentially exempt the energy code from this legislation. I did say that I would be remiss I'm a bit remiss that there's nobody here to offer a defense of the International Building Code and the International Residential Code. However, speaking on that would be a bit outside my wheelhouse.
Okay, so it only pertains to your code.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Members, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the next item in the agenda, HB 1526 HD1. First to testify, relating to affordable housing development. First to testify, we have Dean Minakami from the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation with comments. Okay, not here. Moving on, we have Evan Owe from NIOP Hawaii Chapter in opposition.
We stand on our testimony in opposition. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we do have written testimony in opposition from County of Hawaii Office of Housing and Community Development, Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, and Hawaii YIMBY. Members, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2710 HD1 relating to telecommunications. First to testify, we have Leo Sunshin from the Public Utilities Commission with comments.
Good evening, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Sayama, and members of the House Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. My name is Andrew Okabe. I am the utility analyst at the Public Utilities Commission. I'm here on behalf of Chair Leo Sunshin of the Public Utilities Commission. I stand on the Commission's written testimony offering comment. I'm available for any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony in support from Kailua Alert and Prepared, opposition from CTIA, and 3 individuals in support. Members, any questions on this measure? Okay, seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2462 HD1 relating to the electronic prescription accountability system. First to testify, we have Jared Radula from the Department of Law Enforcement in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Jared Radula, I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Law Enforcement and the former Narcotics Enforcement Administrator. The department is in support of this. This is a very good proposal. It does 2 things. Number one, let me explain. The Prescription Drug Monitoring Program is the state's database of controlled substances prescriptions issued in the last 5 years. It is recommended that all prescribers use it. This proposal is advantageous because it cleans up the statute which commands who can access the system very well. Second, there are 2 federal laws that have occurred over the last few years that require the state of Hawaii to share this information number one, with the state MedQuest program, and number 2, to the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. Because of that and what this bill does, we are in very strong support. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy Betts from the Department of Human Services, Hawaii, in support on Zoom.
Good evening, Chair Nakashima. I'm Ranjini Starr, Health Analytics Administrator for the MedQuest Division. On behalf of the Department of Human Services and Director Betts, we stand on our testimony in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we don't have any further testimony on this. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to HB 2475 HD1 relating to commercial ocean activity. First to testify on this measure, we have DLNR Adobor in support. Okay, they're not here. Any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we have written testimony from Kua Aina Ulu Aumano in support, and Maui Chamber of Commerce in support. Moving on to HB 1936 HD1. This is relating to harbor safety. First to testify, we have Ed Sniffen from the Department of Transportation with comments on Zoom.
Aloha, this is Dre Kalili, Deputy Director of Transportation for Harbors. We've submitted written comments.
Primarily in our comments, we just note that if we're being directed to regulate labor, we don't really have the expertise or personnel on hand immediately to regulate labor. And that concludes our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Leo Sunshin from the Public Utilities Commission with comments.
Aloha, good afternoon, or good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Members Committee. I stand under the Commission's written testimony offering comments. I'm available for any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mark Inoue from PAR Hawaii in opposition.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Mark Inoue from PAR Hawaii. PAR would like the committee's consideration of amendments so that the act does not apply to tug operators who are regulated by the U.S. Coast Guard and who are signatory to a collaborative bargaining agreement. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll be here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tina Yamaki, Retail Merchants of Hawaii, in opposition on Zoom. Okay. Are there any other persons here to testify on this measure? Seeing none, members, we do have written testimony from Island Plastic Bags in opposition, Hawaii Cement in opposition, Retail Merchants. Tina Yamaki, would you like to testify on this measure?
Sure. Sorry.
Please go ahead.
The only concern we have on Tina Yamaki with Retail Merchants, the only concern we have is this bill is that it's going to drive up the cost of goods and services and also delay goods getting to the neighbor island and thus, in fact, making their goods and products a lot more expensive as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we have written testimony in opposition from Hawaii Cement, American Marine Corporation, Hawaii Shippers Council, Hawaii Energy Marketers Association, Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, Centerline Logistics, comments from Hawaii Gas, opposition from Hawaii Cost of Living Coalition, Aloha Marine Lines, ILWU Local 142 in support, Island Energy Services in opposition, Sauce Brothers with comments, American Waterways Operators in opposition, Maui Chamber of Commerce in opposition, BIA Hawaii with comments, and number of individuals in support. Members, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll be taking a short recess for decision making. Recess.
Okay, reconvening the Committee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. It's Tuesday, February 27, 2024. We are in room 329. Members, we have a number of bills for decision-making. House Bill 2289, 2298, relating to consumer protection. Chair's recommendation is that we modify the schedule for the increase in coffee percentages that and change the responsibility from the retailers to the wholesalers, so that wholesalers are required to clear stock of 20% coffee by June 30, 2027, and clear stock of 25% coffee by June 30, 2030, and after June 30, 2033, sell only 50% coffee. And also we need to defectate this to July 1st, 3000. Other technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, questions or comments?
Quick comment.
Representative Lowen.
Thank you. I just want to thank the chair for moving it forward and for letting us have so much discussion today. And also just say, I appreciate we'll continue moving it forward. I still strongly believe going to 100% is the right thing to do. I think the longer timeline is fine, but we've been working on this issue for 30 years. We've been shortchanging our farmers for far too long. And farmers are, Hawaii residents with families, et cetera, too. And they deserve the support of the state and not to be undercut. And you don't have champagne that's 10% or 50% champagne, or Bordeaux or Parmesan, or any of these kind of boutique prestige brands. And we need to do the same to protect the Kona Coffee name and to protect Hawaii's farmers. But I really appreciate you guys' patience and moving this forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
Chair.
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I appreciate your amendments to this bill. I was really disappointed in the results of the market study. I don't think it really proved anything. I am concerned, though, that this bill lacks what is required, which is the collection of data in regards to these changes and how it's going to affect the farmers in terms of the prices that they get for the product, the suppliers in terms of the prices that the market will bear, the volume of green beans that are able to be utilized. I think without that information, we will have no idea what the real impact is going to be to consumers, to the farmers, and to the businesses that we depend on to employ our local residents. So I would like to ask a request that be put into the committee report, that we really need to look at how we collect data to help justify the changes that we're looking at doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Voting on HB 2298, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Amato?
Aye.
Representative Belatti?
Aye.
Representative Hashem?
Aye.
Representative Hussey Burdick? Representative Gates, excused. Representative Lowen? Representative Onishi?
Reservations.
With reservations, Representative Tam?
Aye.
Representative Purick?
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Next, House Bill 1758, relating to professional engineers. What I would like to do is adopt DPP's proposed amendments and effectuate this to July 1st, 3000. Members, questions or comments?
Chair?
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I have concerns regarding this bill based on I think the conflicting testimony that we received. I really believe that this bill maybe should be deferred and give them a chance to work this out. It would seem that, this is the first time that I'm seeing this bill. And so I do not take lightly the board's offer to try to come up with a solution and a definition in regards to this whole thing with experience and design experience. But, I also believe that the counties have not exercised their tools in order to be able to attract appropriate engineers and to retain them. In the past, engineers, I know we're getting like 500 or more shortage differential pay a month because it was so hard to recruit engineers. And so, they can also reprice the class if it involves all the counties and the state. So I don't believe they've exercised their authority in order to try to recruit appropriate employees. So with that, I'm going to be voting with reservations on this bill also.
Thank you very much, Representative Onishi. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 1758, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Gates for the rest of this decision-making, and the reservations vote from Representative Onishi. Any other members voting with reservations? Any other members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. House Bill 2525 relating to liquor licenses. Chair's recommendation is we defer this matter. On House Bill 2049 related to the Hawaii Property Insurance Association. Again, the recommendation is to defer. On House Bill 1989, House Draft 1 related to raw milk. Chair's recommendation is that we adopt recommendations from HMSO to include raw milk dairy products as well as our raw milk into the measure. Members, any questions or comments?
Chair.
Representative Onishi.
Yeah, I still have the same concerns over this bill that we've heard almost every year for the past, I don't know,
3 years.
8 years or so. I do not see the benefit. I don't think economically we have all those farmers that are just waiting to raise dairy cattle and sell raw milk. I believe there is a health risk. When you go to the CDC and you Google or you put in CDC raw milk, the first thing it comes up with is that raw milk is one of the riskiest foods. I don't know why we're passing this bill. It makes no sense to me, so I have to vote no on this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Representative Tam.
Thank you, Chair. I will be voting with reservations. I continue to share the concerns that I've shared over the years. Considering we do have a healthcare shortage in the state, it might not be the most best approach if we are going to legalize something that is said to be potentially harmful and dangerous.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments?
Yes, Chair. I'll also be voting with reservations.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 1989, HG1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the reservations votes from Representative Model, Tam, and the no vote from Representative Onishi, any other members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 2337, House Draft 1, relating to pesticides. The chair's recommendation is to pass this as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as is.
Voting on HB 2337 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 2773, House Draft 1, related to agricultural product labeling. Chair's recommendation is that we defer this matter. House Bill 2654, House Draft 1, related to building codes. The Chair's recommendation is to move this as is. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, unamended.
Voting on HB 2654 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 2089, House Draft 1, related to the state building code. I'd like to adopt a number of technical amendments, including that the council shall adopt, amend, update code standards identified in section 107-25 on a staggered basis established by the council, provided that, one, the adoption, amendment, or update of a code or standard exempt the International Building Code and International Residential Code, and shall be within 2 years of the official publication date of the code or standard. And two, adoption, amendment, or update of the International Building Code and International Residential Code be published by the International Code Council shall be within 2 years of every other official publication of the applicable code. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 2089 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? No from Representative Pierick. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1526, House Draft 1, related to affordable housing development. Chair's recommendation is that we pass this as is. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, unamended.
Voting on HB 1526 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? No from Representative Pierick. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 2710, House Draft 1, related to telecommunications. Members, I refer you to amendments proposed by Representative Martin, who is the maker of the bill, amending Section E and adding Section F to the measure. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 2710 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 2462, House Draft 1, related to electronic prescription accountability system. Chair's recommendation is that we pass this as is. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, the Vice Chair, unamended.
Voting on HB 2462 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 2475, House Draft 1, related to commercial ocean activity. Chair's recommendation is that we adopt technical amendments provided by HMSO regarding unpermitted commercial activity. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 2475 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. House Bill 1936, House Draft 1, related to harbor safety. Members, a proposed HD2 has been circulated to you. The proposal is pretty much a rewrite of the measure. It removes a lot of things that are being required of the state that the state really does not do at this point in time. So we've streamlined it so that the action can be moved forward without any additional state resources going to the to satisfy the need of the bill. Members, any questions or comments? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief comment. I appreciate you providing the document to us that makes it a lot easier for me to read and understand. While I do support unions, I am inclined to support this bill, but I don't know yet how this is going to play out in terms of the cost of living and how it would especially impact neighbor islands. So I'll be voting with reservations today until I get a better idea of how this is going to work out in real life. And I'll be researching this before it comes to us.
All right. Thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments?
I'll make a comment. Thank you for working on this. Thank you for working on this, Chair. I think, yeah, just thank you for giving us another proposal.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Voting on HB 1936 HD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the reservations vote from Representative Hussey Burdick. Any other members voting with reservation? Any members voting no? No from Representative Purek. Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, on this next measure, we are moving to reconsider action previously taken on House Bill 2045 relating to automatic renewals. So the first motion is to reconsider. Do we have a roll call on this? Okay. Members, the motion is to reconsider. Are there any opposed to the reconsideration? We are reconsidering. We are reconsidering to add several provisions that clarify the bill's scope. And is this motion just on the motion to reconsider? So the initial motion is to reconsider, and then the second motion will be on the actual amendments. Okay, Vice Chair.
Okay, voting on HB 2045, this is a motion for reconsidering decision-making on this measure. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. So the proposed amendments to kind of add clarity to the bill. First, to clarify that the bill applies to contracts of 1 month or more. Add notice that any material change needs to be sent to the consumer not less than 30 days before the effective date of the change. Clarify that exemption for insurers to add affiliates of insurers regulated under Chapter 143, 431, 432, or 432D, and add an exemption for entities, affiliates affiliates regulated pursuant to Chapter 481X to address certain service contracts. So those are the changes being proposed to the bill. Members, questions or comments?
Sorry, can you just repeat the last exemptions for?
Add
people under-
exemptions or for entities or affiliates regulated pursuant to Chapter 481X to address certain service contracts.
And just making sure a defective date.
I think the date is already defected, right? Yeah, the date is already defected because we did previously consider this measure. Members, questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, reconsideration.
Voting on HB 2045, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Thank you, Chair. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, members. Another long day. We are adjourned.